Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mothers have practically built themselves.
Hello folks, it's Mad Dog Merv, and well, I've got to warn you that this video is rated R. Well, I know, terrible. Today we are going to look at one of the pirate ships that I've been working on. So you've heard the story, you've heard me mention before, there's these 4 ships that I want to build. I'm doing them in 1/96 scale, so they're pretty large. And these are all sailing ships that I'm going to modify into pirate ships for this murder mystery game that I'm going to be doing later in the year. The game comes with some pictures of the 4 different pirate ships for the 4 different crews that are part of this murder mystery game. And I looked at those pictures and thought, well, yeah, that's kind of neat, but me being me, I wanted to build a pirate ship for each one of these. The small pirate ships just were not going to cut it. And again, I wanted a nice large something that we could put on the table and be a great centerpiece. So the 4 pirate ships are the Raging Cannon, the El Lobo del Mar, the Yeti o' the Sea, and the Black Onyx. And the ones that I'm excited to get all of them done actually. But today we are going to look at the Raging Cannon. So to try and do this as economically as possible, I figured it would be probably a good idea to get some of these USS Constitutions in the 1/96 scale that were partially built, because come on, very few people actually build these start to finish. They start them and they just become so overwhelmed and they wind up in this kind of state. And sure enough, eBay had one of these. I was the top bidder at $22. Of course, shipping killed me. It was like $30 to have it shipped, but still not too bad. I didn't pay close enough attention though. There's no instructions, which is fine because I've got instructions, but it was missing quite a few parts, including the upper deck. So here's the picture from the game of the ship that, and I'm not going to try and replicate this exactly, but I'm going to try and do something that is similar, if that makes any sense. But I'm restricted in that I'm doing this on a USS Constitution hull. So let's get started with it. You see, here's what I've got to start with. It's already got the first deck in. The 2 halves have been glued together, and somebody had painted the copper on the bottom and painted the white stripe on it as well. Now I had a Cutty Sark model. At least I had some pieces from the Cutty Sark, masts and sails, some other pieces, and so I assembled some of those pieces because they're going to play into this build as well. So I ripped out the first deck because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that my top deck, and I have blanked over all of the gun ports, the lower gun ports. I'm not going to have guns sticking out of there. I can't remember how many guns are supposed to be on this. I think 36 total. But anyway, I went ahead and I took that deck, which doesn't quite fit. If you move it up, I had to do some trimming. And the other part of it is it's not the same length. So you can see I made a plug about 1/3 of the way back out of balsa wood that not too bad. I mean, it fit in there okay. You'll see how it turns out here in a minute. And after some sanding and some painting, got the whole deck together and voila. Now this, I can't remember what color it was. Honestly, I can't remember what color it was, but we're going to do some work on this and get it to look like a decent wooden deck. Also at this time I painted the sides of the ship, and I can't remember the color I painted that. It was something I had from Poly-S, an old Poly-S paint. I want to say it was like a middle stone or dark earth, something like that. Anyway, you can see I've primed the back end. so that I could start painting things like red and white and gold on it. But I used some of for the primer, I just used some Mr. Surfacer, I think 1000 for it, so the finer stuff. So here is the upper works painted with that acrylic paint. You can see the forward part that I painted some blue in there and did the gold scroll work and some red edges. And again, for the captain's cabin area, I kept that pretty much stock the way it came on the kit. Didn't really modify back there. For the trim on the hull and some of the decking, I went ahead and got a burnt umber color from my great stock of paint, and that's what I'm going to use for a lot of the trim. You can see that there. Now for the hull itself, the bottom part of the hull, I got this German brown violet, painted the hull, the lower hull where the hull plates are with that, and I've got something else in mind, okay, that's going to cover this, and we'll show you here in a few minutes. Went ahead and took some black and got some of my trim done, and you can see all of that here starting to come together and look pretty darn good. Now I'm going to raise the area above the captain's cabin a bit, so I'm taking some spare parts and I'm going to take some evergreen styrene, build up the area just a little bit, use some V-groove for the deck itself, and you can see that process here. I got it raised up, got the deck on there, I've got the very back end piece in. You can see here I'm weathering the deck, giving it a couple of different washes, one with kind of a sludgy gray, and the other one was a brown wash. You'll also notice on the lower hull what appears to be gravel, and that's what this is. This is some sand and some dirt that I had glued on the bottom to simulate barnacles. I'm going to dry brush them in a gray, see if I can make them look more like barnacles, because ships were barnacle encrusted. Here's that rear deck, and one of the pieces, several of the pieces actually, that I borrowed from my Cutty Sark to make this piece here. And so far I kind of like the looks of this. I think it'll work. Definitely will make it different than the Constitution. How's that? Did have some putty that I needed to do here to try and make this look better. So now I got to go back and sand that. You can see I've got 3 cannon ports way back here. I'm going to go ahead and take the stand that came with it, hit it with the Mr. Primer Surfacer 1000. The Constitution, I'm actually going to build a plate to go over that. So now we're going to work on the forecastle. Go ahead and put down some of these strips so that we can raise this area up as well. Unfortunately, most of this won't be seen. In fact, I don't think any of this area will be seen. But at least we'll be able to raise it up like a good proper pirate ship. So went ahead and threw some cannons in there. Didn't worry about putting any ropes through them, anything like that. Just went ahead and put them on in here. Okay, and now we're going to wash that deck after we've painted it with the wood color to try and get it to match the rest of the deck, and it should work out fine. You can see the railings that we've put up here. And yes, I do have 2 stairs. I've got to get one out of one of my spare kits. And we've got to figure out something to do for the side walls. So we'll work on that here in a minute. But yeah, it's coming along. Starting to look pretty good with the raised rear and the raised forecastle area. Yeah, I think I'm starting to like this. So I'm going to throw this cannon arrangement in there. And I kind of like it. But yet, I don't really have anything pointed forward, so I decided I was going to make some changes anyway. But again, looking at it here, it's starting to really come together and look pretty good, in my estimation at least. Now, I'm not going to be doing much in the way of rigging on this, just so y'all know. So for the sides here, I'm building this out of balsa. And yes, we are going to have cannons here. And here they are with the cannons. Got those painted up. I can't remember the brown I used on the carriages, but just black for the cannons, and yeah, they look pretty good there. So I've just got to get this stained properly. I've used this burnt umber first, and then I'll come back with that color that the hull is, and we'll get it blended in. So here is the change I made up front. And I decided to put the two cannons pointed forward, still have kind of a vent hole there in the front, and you can see that I've got these lanterns, and these lanterns came from the craft store. They're actually beads, some kind of a crafting bead. But anyway, I think they make a great lantern. So got the rat lines put up, and the masts starting to really come together. Now I'm just going to have to put some sails on it and do a little bit of rigging, but well, here's where we are so far, folks, and thanks for watching today. We will bring you up to speed on part 2 coming up soon. We are going to have a tutorial on how I painted the deck probably here in the next week or so, and then we'll get to part 2 sometime next month.